to put food on the table and pay the rent. And by the way, in a Biden administration, our belief is nobody should have to work more than one job to put food on the table and pay the rent. But how people might have prepared, knowing that most American families don't have more than $1,000 in savings, how they might have prepared, how small businesses might have prepared. When we're looking at the impact here in Florida and around the country. You know, I joke, but seriously, how we might have prepared just to buy an extra couple of rolls of toilet paper those days, right? But they sat on this information, and now we are looking at the pain and the loss that so many people have suffered. And on top of all of this, in the midst of a public health crisis, Donald Trump, together with his boy, Bill Barr, are in the United States Supreme Court suing to get rid of the Affordable Care Act that President Obama and Vice President Biden brought to the American people and allowed for over 20 million people to have coverage, including protecting people with pre-existing conditions. And now they're trying to get rid of it. And let's put this in context. Raise your hand if you know somebody who has diabetes. Raise your hand if you love somebody who has high blood pressure or surviving breast cancer or lupus. And they're trying to get rid of these protections. And this brings up the one of many ways that the American people, that Floridians, have a real choice in front of them. Because on the one hand, you have Joe Biden, who, together with President Obama, created the Affordable Care Act. Joe Biden, who says, we come into office and we're going to expand on what it did. We're going to bring down prescription drug prices. We're going to bring down the cost of premiums. We're going to lower Medicare eligibility to age 60. We're going to deal with health care in a way that we expand coverage, understanding that health care doesn't mean the body starts from the neck down. It also includes health care from the neck up. That's called mental health care, which we sorely need to expand. There's a real clear choice here, two very different choices. So that's Joe. And on the other hand, you have someone who has lied, yes, I said that, lied to the American people, has not followed the science, who has suggested this is a hoax, who has suggested that on the ledger he keeps, you're on one side of his ledger if you wear a mask, you're on the other side of his ledger if you don't. There's a real clear choice. These crises, the economic crisis that has resulted from this pandemic, being compared to the Great Depression in terms of its impact. Over 30 million people in just the last several months filed for unemployment. Here in Florida, 1 in 9 families is describing their household as having been hungry. We're in the midst of a hunger crisis in America. 1 in 5 mothers, I've seen the numbers, describes her children under the age of 12 as being hungry. In America today, we're looking in Florida at 1 in 7 households who is describing a difficulty paying their rent or inability to pay their rent. Here in Florida, 1 in 4 small businesses have gone out of business with very small likelihood of being able to reopen. Economic devastation. And again, you have a Joe Biden who, when asked, how do you think the economy is doing? How are you measuring the economy? Joe Biden responds with, well, tell me how working people are doing. Tell me how working families are doing. Joe Biden says we need to move forward, not increasing taxes for anyone making less than $400,000 a year. We will increase tax cuts for middle-class families. We will ensure that working families pay no more than 7% of their income in child care. We will ensure that first-time home buyers get a $15,000 tax credit to help with down payment or closing costs, understanding that home ownership is one of the greatest paths toward economic health and well-being, intergenerational health and well-being. That's how Joe thinks about the economy. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who, when asked how is the economy doing, asks the question, how's the stock market doing? Asks, how are rich people doing? Which clearly is what motivated what he considers to be one of his greatest achievements, was a tax bill that they passed benefiting the top 1% and the biggest corporations in America, leading to a $2 trillion deficit that everyone else will have to deal with. Well, I'm going to tell you something. Broward County, we're going to do everything we can over these next 3 days, and God willing, we are going to win this election, and Joe and I are about to get rid of that tax cut. And invest that money in working people and in our families. Invest that money in an infrastructure plan that is going to be about, yes, building back up our roads and our bridges, but also investing in renewable energies. It is going to create millions of jobs. We are going to invest that money, understanding that any young person coming from a family that makes less than $125,000 will go to a 4-year public college for free, including an HBCU. Because that's how we build up, and as Joe likes to say, build back better. Invest in the American people. Invest in our young people. Invest in our families. And boy, the return on that investment is profound. We are dealing with crises. A long overdue reckoning on the issue of racial injustice in America. And you have Joe, being a student of American history and having the courage to speak truth, who has the ability and willingness to speak the phrase, Black Lives Matter. Joe, who says we must speak truth no matter how difficult it may be for some to hear. We must acknowledge racial disparities. We must acknowledge what the virus has highlighted. For example, in our healthcare system, when African Americans and Latinos are 3 times as likely to contract the virus and twice as likely to die from it. When Black women are 3 to 4 times likely to die in childbirth as compared to other women. When our Native American brothers and sisters have the highest rates of diabetes of any population in our country. We must speak truth about these things and address them with the motivation being that we have to have a society that is built on a respect for the concept of equality and reaching equality through initiatives that are about achieving equity. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who, on the debate stage in the first debate, we all remember, refused to condemn white supremacists, and then went on to double down and talk about stand back and stand by. And I think it's really important to put this in context and to understand a pattern we have witnessed. A pattern that started before he was running for president, where he questioned the legitimacy of the first Black president of the United States, where on the issue of Charlottesville, where there were peaceful protesters protesting racial injustice in America. A young woman died in that protest. And on the other side, there were neo-Nazis wearing swastikas, carrying tiki torches, spewing racial and anti-Semitic slurs. And the President of the United States says there were fine people on both sides. The President of the United States, who has called Mexicans rapists and criminals, who, as one of his first orders of business, put in place a Muslim ban. And here's the thing. We are better than this. We are so much better than this.